Hello, this is Katie Walker in the College of Education, and in this video tutorial, I'm going to review how College of Ed students can utilize Google Drive and Google Apps. And so you can see that I'm sharing with you Google Drive, and I am logged in with my @alaska.edu account. And if you click on whatever you see in the top corner, that'll identify which account you're using. The most confusing thing is that many of us have multiple Google accounts, and it's going to be important for you to utilize your alaska.edu account, which is a Google account, when you're doing work. And if your faculty instructor shares something with you, they will share it with this account. So don't request access to it using your personal Gmail account, but instead log into Google using your alaska.edu account. And if you aren't sure which account you're in, as I said, you can click up here. And I find that it's helpful to just choose a very different photo so that I can visually tell which account I am by just looking at the picture that I've chosen. So I know if it's my personal or my work account. This button is really important, and I just want to go through that first. So we at the University of Alaska College of Education, we utilize Google Mail and Calendar and a number of other Google apps. YouTube is part of Google as well. I said originally I like to use Google Drive, and what I meant was, as opposed to going directly to Google Docs, which is word processing, or Google Sheets, spreadsheets, or Google Slides, presentations, etc., under Google Drive is a bigger picture, and I can have a whole variety of different types of documents, including ones that are not Google documents. So PDFs or files created with Photoshop, for example. Anything can be stored in Google Drive. The name of it should indicate what it is. It is a drive, so it's like a thumb drive, or it's like a hard drive, or it's just a cloud drive. And so it's really nice to be able to use it because that it's available whatever computer you log into. It doesn't matter what computer you're using to have access to files. So I'm going to just go over some basics here with you today. So across the top, we're going to talk about the new button in just a moment. And so my drive, of course, has basically the same options as the new button, and we'll talk about that in a moment. To the right, there's also just different ways you can look at things, so you can choose whatever you prefer. There's also information about different activities and details of particular files that you want, so additional information with that I there. And then the settings button, of course, is important. So you can download Drive onto your computer and use it as you would more like a thumb drive, and that's pretty handy if you use it a lot. But under settings is a really important one that I want to mention. So this option, you want to really think about whether you want to leave that checked or not checked. As you can see, I have it not checked. And that's because I use Google Drive for file storage of all kinds of different files, and I don't want them to always be converted automatically to Google Docs. If I want to convert them to Google Docs, I do it later. So for example, I store PowerPoint files in here that I'm going to be using in Blackboard Collaborate. I don't want them to be converted to Google Slide format because Google Slide format can't be loaded into Collaborate. And so I want to make sure that they stay in PowerPoint format. So I leave that unchecked. But obviously, if you're going to be doing collaboration with other people, it will need to be in the Google format. So you just have to think about what your purpose is, whether it's just storage or whether it's collaboration. And the other thing is just to notice these column headings at the top, so you can sort by clicking those buttons and put things in reverse alphabetical order or in alphabetical order. You can search by, or sorry, you can see the owner of the folder or document, and you can see when it's been last modified or last opened, and file size. And then over here on the left, this is these are some ways to make it easier for you to find your stuff. So you have your own Google Drive now. It's totally up to you, your preference. You may decide to organize things into folders by creating folders here, Or if you're in a committee, you might have a folder for that committee. You can see that some of these folders are private. If they don't have a little person in them, that means I am the only one who has access to that. If they have a little person figure in there, that means they're shared. So every committee I'm on typically has a folder, and it just makes it easier because that means anything we put in the folder is automatically shared with everybody on the committee. And being my preference is having things in folders, and that's just what I like, but it's not necessary. The search feature works really, really well. So you can just type in whatever your topic is. I'm just using this as an example, and it'll just search through everything and find that keyword. So you don't have to use folders. You can just use the search whenever you're ready to find something. If you do use folders, however, you might find it easier to drag the folders over to the left, and then you can have them also over here, so that when you click on it, you can see them both. It's again up to you. You don't have to drag them over to the left. But shared with me, of course, is very handy to find things that people have shared with you. And we'll talk about how to do that in a moment. But generally, you receive an email that lets you know someone shared it with you. Sometimes that's confusing, again, because of which Google account you might be in. But if you don't find what you're looking for, then check and make sure you're in the right account. Shared with me just makes it easy to find things that other people have created. And then the recent one, of course, are things that you've been recently working with. I find it helpful to change the color, which if you right click, there's the change color option. Projects that I'm currently working on are things that I access a lot. I often change the color of, or I star, and that way I can just click starred and those will come right up. And so those are some basic tips, and as I said, I was going to come back to new. So new is when you want to create something new in Google. So you want to start a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet or a Google slide presentation, you would click on one of these buttons. Or you want to create a new folder just for organizing things, or if you wanted to upload. Now this would be the one where you either want to convert it to Google Doc because you're going to collaborate on it, or you want to just use it for storage, and in that case you don't want to convert it to a Google Doc. And I'm using Google Doc generally, but I mean any of the Google apps such as Slides or Sheets. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and create a Google presentation. Let's just pretend I'm working with some classmates on a presentation. Now it's going to depend what your instructor asks you for, but generally your instructor wants you to submit an actual file in PDF format or Word format or PowerPoint format, because that is what works best with Blackboard. That doesn't mean you can't use Google. It just means that when you're done, you're going to want to download it into whatever format your instructor has asked for. Your instructor generally does not want you to share things because they want to have the actual document so they can utilize the markup tools in Blackboard. So as a general rule, you can just go to download as whatever you're working with and put it in whatever format your instructor asks for, and then you'll just upload it to Blackboard like you would normally. When you're collaborating with classmates, then you're going to want to share with the other people in your group, and you can do that by clicking this share button. And it says, of course, I have to name it, so let me go ahead and give it a name. Okay, so here's all you have to do to share with your classmates. You would just type in the username and make sure that you find the alaska.edu account, because as I said before, we always want to use that account for our schoolwork, and you could continue to add additional people. When you go to advanced, you will see everybody that this is shared with, and you will have some other options. So private, only you can access. That means private plus any of these additional people. And this has a little pencil here, and that means that I'm going to share it with Dr. Who, and he will be able to edit it. If I only want him to view it or comment, I can change it. But if you're collaborating, typically you want to allow your classmates to be able to edit it. Okay, and when you go ahead and send it, then that person will receive a notification. And also, they will also find it under their shared with me when they go to Google Drive next. So the other thing that's helpful when you're working with other students and collaborating on a Google slideshow or Google Doc is under the File menu, there is also a revision history, which can be helpful to kind of figure out who made what changes, or if you need to go back to a certain point in time because something was messed up or whatever. And then I mentioned before about download. So if you are going to be doing a presentation, collaborate, it must be in PowerPoint format. None of the other formats will work from Google Slides. So you will need to download it as PowerPoint. And occasionally when you convert, the formatting will change. So you definitely will need to plan to just quickly open it in PowerPoint and go through and make sure that everything's going to look okay. And then you can submit the PowerPoint to your instructor for uploading into Collaborate or whatever the instructions are. So when you are working with others collaborating on a document, you can see that I've just shared this with Dr. Who, and now he has joined, and I can see that he is in this document, and I can see that he's working on slide 1. So it's really handy to notice when other people are there. I can actually chat, live chat, and I can also, if I'm not real time with somebody, then I can leave comments that they can find later. So all of the Google apps, Google Docs, Google Slides, and Google Sheets have the same features with, you notice when someone enters, and you can see that he has now left because his icon is not there anymore. And you can chat if they are live, or if not, you can comment. So if I selected something, I could add a comment, and that would show up for people. I'm just going to give an example here. Oops. And so when you click the comment button, then the next person who comes in, even if it's 5 hours later, they'll be able to see that comment and they can reply to it or resolve it or whatever they want to do. So a lot of great collaboration features. And so as I said before, when you're completely done, you'll want to download it into a different format likely, but all changes are saved. That's the nice thing about Google, is that it saves constantly for you, so you are not likely to ever lose anything. One thing that is maybe not so nice about Google from a user standpoint is that it constantly is changing. And of course it's improving, but that means that the next time you go into Google Drive, it might look different. They might have changed the name of this. They might have rearrange things or given you some new options. So don't be surprised when you go into Google Drive one day and it looks different. It might take you a few minutes to figure it out or look it up, but they are on kind of a continuous improvement schedule, and so they just change things constantly. So be aware of that. Another thing I want to mention is from this Google Drive, as opposed to being directly in a Google Doc or Google Slide, is if you right click, you have a number of options, including the sharing. The Get Shareable link is kind of useful, probably not so much as a student, but it can be handy if you're going to be giving a presentation. You could actually share the link, and anybody who has that link would be able to view it. Anyone can find and view it. So that's something I'm going to turn off for that one, but it is pretty handy. And I just sorted them a little differently there. So then the other thing is, we talked already about how adding a star and changing the color can be helpful, but you can also reorganize like you would a normal drive. If you wanted to put this folder within another folder, you can use Move To do that. You can rename, and there are other options as well, of course, removing. If I wanted to know exactly who this folder is shared with, I can see it's shared by that little person in there. Then I can go to Share, and then I can click Advanced, and that will give me a full list of all the people that it's shared with. And so that's kind of handy to be able to know who things are shared with by just being able to go to that advanced sharing option. And those features that I just showed you with a right click are all basically the same ones that you'll find up here as well. So there's multiple ways as usual. So hopefully this overview will get you started with using Google Drive efficiently with your @alaska.edu account.